baked into our DNA very early, cause-driven marketing, purposeful storytelling. And I think when you talk about going to market, if you have a transparent purpose with that audience, with your fan base, whatever that is, your donor base, your customer base, your fan base, that is, especially now with social proof and all the different channels that we have to consume content, that is absolutely transparent. You can tell if a brand or an organization is being purposeful and if they're being truthful about that. And making that emotional connection is much easier with the audience when you have a cause or a purpose behind what you're doing.
It's Kurt Derdix, and I am so excited to share my conversation with one of my best friends, Jacob Tell, the founder of Oniracom, a Santa Barbara-based creative services agency. And this is a jam-packed interview. You'll hear me celebrate Jacob's career as an innovator for over 20 years in the music biz and how he's widened the lens from music to the broader markets. And we empathize with the recent passing of Jacob's dad, Darrel, and we explore how Jacob is finding his alignment and doing his part to improve the world through his vision for District 216, a pioneering psychedelic social club based in Santa Barbara, California. And without further ado, here's Jacob.
Curdy D.
Buddy, it's so good to see you. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much.
I'm glad that I'm kind of like on your C list so I could finally get on your show. You've got like so many badass people you've interviewed over the years. I'm honored to be amongst them. Thank you.
Well, this is, you and I have a very special relationship going on 23 years now. I can't believe it. I mean, it's like half my life.
Wow. Thanks for making me feel old. Yeah. I'm honored to have you in the good years of my life too, man. It's been a wild ride.
So to catch the audience up and give some context, this is going to be a really amazing interview. I think it's one that really is kind of on point with the spirit of the show, where we celebrate people that are living life on their own terms and going against the grain. Joseph Campbell, one of my favorite philosophers, academic, talks about the right-handed path. I think that's like the blue pill in the Matrix. And then there's like the go against the grain. That's a left-handed path. And that's the go against the grain. That's the red pill, right? And you've definitely been somebody on my journey that's encouraged me to dream. We met, I think it was at your cousin Kim's wedding, when she married Jack Johnson, who I went to college with Kim and Jack at UCSB. Back in the day, we were all freshmen friends in the dorms, and that's a really great time. We stayed in touch, and I was so delighted to get an invite to their amazing wedding. And I think that's the first time that I met you, because I actually did a video of their wedding, and that I discovered last week. I hadn't seen it in forever.
I have it?
I have it. I digitized all these VHS tapes I had from back in the day. It was I had my high school reunion. I found the last day of high school. I put a video together for my classmates, and I saw the Jack and Kim wedding. And because I remember meeting you there, but you weren't in the video, so I didn't have a relationship with you at the time to go interview you. So, but
those insightful nuggets of wisdom that you lost not putting me in that video. What the hell?
The video is amazing, though. It's like, Kelly Slater and Rob Machado and Surf Royalty basically, giving beautiful blessings to Kim and Jack. And it just warmed my heart. And the fact that that's where we met is really sweet. And we've become really good buds. And why don't you catch the audience up on your journey? And it's such a fascinating one with Oniracom as kind of the through line and the melody, and now with District 216 as sort of this really fascinating counter melody, all the pun intended.
Yeah, I love the music references. Keep them coming. And go Gauchos! We're both UCSB alums, and
yes,
I'm a few years behind you, but I think we have that same ethos, culture, vibe from this geography. We we're blessed to spend some of our formative years here in Santa Barbara. So we've definitely got that in common.
Yeah, I grew up in Ventura. You grew up in North San Diego County, right?
Carlsbad, yeah.
Yeah. That's you win. Ventura's amazing too, but Carlsbad, that's beautiful.
It's all good. I like it up here. But yeah, I mean, just to back up towards that time, it's funny, maybe about a year or less after we met, after that wedding, a couple of buddies of mine, the two engineers and myself, the non-engineer, the trio of us decided we were going to start a web company, or a web shop, in quotes, if you will. It's funny when people are like, oh, you've had your marketing agency for 22 years, 23 years. I didn't know what a marketing agency even was when we started. I would never have called it a marketing agency or even a marketing company. We were definitely technologists, and we were doing web and e-com in the day and age when it was super challenging to do that stuff. It was hard to build even a regular website, let alone something with commerce. I mean, I don't know the demographics of your audience, but let's assume that some of them, are more towards the digital native side. I mean, we had to get 90 to 120 days approval for a credit card processor. We take for granted that we swipe credit cards online. Like, that wasn't even ubiquitous in 2001. It was just becoming like trusted to put your payment information online. And for a band, an artist, to do that, even less common. So, for us, we started as web and e-com. We were lucky enough to work in the film industry first, and then quickly moved into the music industry. Jack and his wife, Kim, hired us to build out some of their first web properties to support Jack's first record, Jack Johnson. And through that relationship, we started to meet other managers and artists and eventually record labels. And so our little web shop, a trio of guys around a couch, turned into, okay, now we're actually doing digital marketing. And we are doing that for all the major record labels. So within 3-4 years, we were working with Universal and Sony and Warner and EMI and Disney. And, a year or two later than that, I was on the road running merchandise globally for Jack. So it's definitely got some cool beginnings.
Yeah. I remember running into you. I flew out to Amsterdam in 2006 to go hang out with Jack. And that was a funny experience, because that was In Between Dreams tour. I think that was his biggest album commercially. And,
yeah. For the YouTubers that can see video behind me, there's the tour poster back there. It's like a yearbook. All the crew and band signed it. But those were the good old days, man. And we had ALO was opening for Jack, right?
Yeah, that was such good times. Yeah, that was in Jack's college band, Soil, the ALO, Animal Liberation Orchestra. They were in the same configuration, but under a different band name. They were called Django, with paying respect to Django Reinhardt. And they were sort of like rival bands, like.
Right.
Yeah. And, but yeah, that was such good times. And I remember running into you in Amsterdam, and, that's where I think our friendship really kind of blossomed from there. And,
I don't think you partook enough, if you remember running into me in Amsterdam.
Well, no, I there's some stories right. That we won't say.
Just throw that out there.
There were so many people smoking weed inside of the Amsterdam. It was at the Heineken Hall. It was like a big hot box. And I think Jack got a contact high, and he couldn't remember the words. And so you had to have the audience sing along. And it was so magical because, people knew the words, and it was just like campfire times 10,000 people.
Amazing. Yeah. I think he was definitely barefoot there for that too. I mean, I believe this was a winter tour, and Jack would still roll out in sandals. These are indoor venues, of course, but still, he didn't even want to have shoes in the winter months of Europe. So
yeah, I remember we were all staying at the American Hotel, great hotel, and we met up for brunch, and then we walked around, and it was me, him, and I think it was Matt Rayner came with me. And I was like, so bro, like, what's it like being like, famous? And, is it kind of weird? He's like, it's, not that big of a deal. And then like literally, he's like, yeah, people don't really recognize me. I was like, all right, whatever. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome, and then 30 seconds later, like, two girls come up, Jack, will you sign my autograph? And, like 5 minutes later, somebody else comes up and it just doesn't stop. And he's just like, man, they must have done really good radio promo before the show,
Yeah, he
And,
puts it on the table. Yeah.
yeah. And he was so sweet because he was like, hey, he promised these people tickets and he wrote it down and he's like, dude, Kurt, can you help me remember to check those tickets in? Because I guess he had in the past had forgotten to do it and just felt so badly. So I remember I did my job for the day and help him remind him to get the people on the list. So
I love it. String around his finger. Perfect.
It's all good, man. I mean, I think that's the artist life. Back to you, some of the artists that you worked with are amazing. Ben Harper, G Love, the Wailers, who are John Legend. I think you were, who is a guy that's mega big from Hawaii now? He says a 24 karat gold song. Who's that guy? He's like, Bruno Mars. Didn't you guys work with him early?
So we were lucky enough to work with Gary Gersh, who, I mean, for those of you that aren't in the music industry, I mean, he found Kurt Cobain and amazing management group. But through him, Modest Yahoo and John Legend and Lenny Kravitz and all these guys, it was amazing opportunity that we were able to do digital marketing and web and strategy work with some of the greatest minds that were just adjacent to the major labels. People like Gary, who kind of was able to do his own thing and have his own management group and his own rules. And for us, you got to remember the context of the internet and of technology. I mean, first of all, social media, when we started, barely, we had Friendster, maybe MySpace. MySpace, actually, with Jack's team and management, went to the MySpace offices in LA to strategize. How are we going to leverage this platform? What are we going to do as a campaign launch? There was this thing called MySpace Music that was a sub portion of the platform coming out, and how are we going to leverage that?
Yeah, that was really cool at the time too.
It actually was.
Yeah, they had those MySpace secret shows and all of that. They did a great job on their go-to-market.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so when you fast forward to okay, now we're starting to have Wi-Fi. We don't even have smartphones yet. There's no tablets or let alone smartphones. The context of this stuff was that the web technologies were very much Wild West. And so you had all these startups and all these .coms that were coming, some of them from, digital strategists that spun out of major labels and went on their own and started their own technology startups. And so for us, we got to sit in the middle of this landscape and integrate all these different technologies into web experiences. We would call them kind of technology mashups, where we would do all these maybe API connections or use SDKs to build out customizations for the labels and the artists so that they could do really cool user interfaces and engage with their fan bases in cool ways, collect data, give them songs or opportunities for meet and greets or whatever it was, whatever the campaign was. And so it was fun. It was very innovative. Now everything's drag and drop. You can build it in a day. It's kind of lost its charm, that whole world of marketing.
Yeah. For the non-technical audience, SDK is a software development kit, and it's basically a bunch of components that an engineer can go and wire things up and make a user interface come to life. And the fact that you're even referencing, using those kind of tools in the context of, 06 kind of pre-Web 2.0 is really remarkable. I mean, that was bleeding edge. I mean, the fact that, these are, some of these SDKs must have been like private betas that were just, you guys were helping drive the product requirements with the Universal's product team in-house.
Yeah, we would go down to mostly LA, or we meet out at South by Southwest. I mean, Kurt, you and I and my partner Mike, we've had plenty of good old days out there in Austin together. Yep. I mean, we would have those types of meetings where it was like, all right, we're going to let you into our, technology landscape. You guys are in. We're going to have you do the customizations. We're focused on our product. Mm-hmm. You guys implement the really cool custom campaigns with, I don't know, we get a call for like, hey, Sir Paul McCartney needs to drop a new, single, and we need to build a landing page. Or, hey, the Disney folks are doing this Alice in Wonderland thing, and we want it to spiral down the rabbit's hole and take the user on this psychedelic journey. So whatever that was, we had to figure it out. It wasn't just, design it and make it user friendly like a lot of web technology approaches are today. It was, how do we technically build this thing and integrate all these different endpoints to actually create a cohesive experience and hide that technology from the user so that they had a real seamless, beautiful experience?
Yeah. I mean, it has so many questions. I mean, it's one of the things I'm thinking about that I'm excited to get into is your new venture that you're doing with District 216, which is your members only psychedelic social club for thinkers, creators, and trailblazers in Santa Barbara. And I haven't been able to be to one of your events yet, but I can't wait to go. But just seeing the quality of the event content that you're posting online and the traction you seem to be getting in a relatively short time, I'm so curious to unpack a little bit about your thoughts about going to market, having been a part of so many product launches in over the last 2+ decades. Yeah, having said that, like, I think, is there a pattern that you see, like Disney, for example, they're so good at bringing products to market, and, there's some kind of lightning in a bottle that they've figured out how to formulate and replicate. And then, even looking at Jack Johnson's career, which has been so remarkable, but having a lightning in a bottle experience that seems to have been very sort of organic and just sort of this magical word of mouth thing that spread through a network of people that were interested in the content and the story. And is any sort of like components to storytelling and even broader at go to market that you think about that could be useful as frameworks for our audience, who are oftentimes, entrepreneurs, go to market folks. And,
Sure.
We've been really pulling the thread of storytelling in the last few shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's use our launching pad into music by talking a little bit about Kim and Jack Johnson and what they did. For those of you that don't know, they created something called a green writer, which essentially a writer for a band would go to a promoter at a venue and say, hey, I want these things in my dressing room. We need these kinds of resources, infrastructure, etc. They made an eco or green writer. So basically saying no single-use plastics in the venue. We need biodiesel for buses and trucks a certain distance away. We want water refill stations installed. We want organic food in our catering. We want, composting, all these kinds of things, right? And so they created a framework, and they basically strong-armed venues and promoters to adopt it, or they would go to the next venue down the road. They had the clout to do that, so they were able to, leverage their, Jack's popularity and fan base. And these changes last. They stuck. A lot of venues went, wow, this isn't really that difficult. Let's do that. And then what happened is other artists and other management groups started adopting it and leveling it up, and then it became industry-wide. So they created a sea change. Because of all of that, we got, baked into our DNA very early, cause-driven marketing, purposeful storytelling. And I think when you talk about going to market, if you have a transparent purpose with that audience, with your fan base, whatever that is, your donor base, your customer base, your fan base, that is, especially now with social proof and all the different channels that we have to consume content, that is absolutely transparent. You can tell if a brand or an organization is being purposeful and if they're being truthful about that. And making that emotional connection is much easier with the audience when you have a cause or a purpose behind what you're doing.
Yeah, I've heard it said it's not really a value or a principle unless it costs you something. And I'm sure some of those early conversations that Jack and Kim and Emmett must have had with venues were probably a bit of like kind of climbing up the high dive and kind of jumping into the cold and seeing if, is this going to be ice that we just hit our head against, or, and to their credit, they jumped in and it was very refreshing experience for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually, anecdotes left and right. One that comes to mind is about that single-use plastics thing. The hardest, most challenging part were the Pepsi contracts with venues. They want to sell plastic water bottles because they're $5-6 a bottle or more. And that's a huge margin for them. So for them to say no single-use plastics is a big deal for a venue to now pull that revenue. And it could mean losing a whole contract with Pepsi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess other thoughts about, some of the, any insights working from Disney that stuck with you?
So we work with Disney Records. So it was nice that we were kind of a subsidiary. We weren't in the, now it was a net 90 payment terms and tons of red tape to get in and out all sorts of wild contracts. But once we got past all of that, it was actually a really awesome forward-thinking digital strategy, digital marketing team at Disney Records that we were aligned with. So that was pretty fantastic. They had a bit of autonomy from the whole mouse machine, and I felt like they operated very similarly to a lot of the other labels that we engaged with. And we had great relationships with some really smart, forward-thinking folks over there. The one thing I'll say is, like, you're working with their assets and the style guides and the requirements are intense. So you have to make sure everything's pixel perfect, that you're not misrepresenting any of their, IP, the characters and how they're displayed, that kind of stuff. So that was certainly maybe a level higher than, say, just taking a piece of album artwork from a label and incorporating that into a web experience. But otherwise, we loved our time with Disney Records.
What about, I'm so curious about like thought leaders and people that really move the needle. Ian Rogers, Topspin. You guys did a bunch of work with him, and he was sort of a, pretty influential guy. And I think he ended up going to work for Apple Music. Where is he now? And what
he's a pioneer, man. I mean, he was at LVMH. He left there for, I believe, for what's that NFT wallet hardware technology company that makes blockchain hardware. Anyways, he was Yahoo Music, moved over to Topspin, founding Topspin. He was early on with Pro Tools as well in the good old days, but he was an innovator. And Ian was one of those guys that basically defined what it meant to have an artist-fan connection and converted that into a technology platform called Topspin. Created some beautiful marketing tools. And Oniracom, our agency, was one of a handful that went through their boot camps, went to LA, and were one of the choices to customize the Topspin campaign. I mean, this was in the day where they were leading, like, give me your email address, fan, and I'll trade you for an MP3. And building that list out organically that way. They would have really easy to use e-commerce tools that you could plug into websites, and actually back in the day into Facebook. We were actually selling e-commerce through a third party on Facebook when they actually allowed that. And it was fantastic. You had tremendous amount of sales potential for a fan base right there in social, which sadly is no longer the case. But, just an incredible company, incredible guy. And what I loved, one of the things that he did at Yahoo was he had his webcam on, and you could tune in from around the world and see what was going on in Yahoo Music. What was going on in Ian's office, what labels were in there meeting with him, and what were they talking about?
So he was at Yahoo Music, and then he did Topspin.
Yep.
And then did Topspin get acquired by Apple Music, or what? He went to Apple after?
Beats. I think it was Beats, and then Beats got acquired by Apple. Yeah. Okay. So I think Beats was the entity that acquired Topspin.
That was Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre.
Mm-hmm. And they had that app, if you remember, before just the headphones side of the business, the hardware side. They had software side. They had this app for Beats music, and it had this really amazing interface where you could pick like what genres you're into and cool visualizations. And Ian went there. Topspin got acquired, or he got acquired rather. Topspin kind of got shelved, and then he went to Apple. And then from there, he was like, "I'm working in luxury. Why not go to Louis Vuitton, LVMH?"
Yeah, I think the owner of LVMH is now the richest man in the world.
I heard something like that a bit ago.
Yeah.
Those purses, man.
Apple Music, I've been listening to Apple Music more because they have a lossless format so that it's high fidelity. I love Spotify. I give them $9-10 a month forever. And it's so convenient. But, I wish Spotify had lossless. And for those that don't know, when they kind of compress audio, there's like a little algorithm they use, and part of the spectrum gets chopped off. So if you listen to something on Spotify, it's not as full featured and fully, there's a little bit of loss in the signal versus like Apple Music is quote unquote lossless, and it actually has the full spectrum and it sounds more like the old school analog records, which is, I think, as good as it gets.
And they have Dolby Atmos. They have a bunch of Atmos albums on there. Like, my goodness, if you don't have an Apple Music subscription and you're a music fan or a Beatles fan, I mean, go listen to Revolver with Atmos lossless on Apple Music with some nice headphones. You are going to hear that album like you never heard it before. It's unbelievable.
I think we just gave a few hundred people a really nice gift right now. I wish we had we didn't get a little affiliate coupon.
We need some affiliate codes, Apple. What's going
on? But did you, Jack and Kim did a bunch of work with Apple, right? Wasn't Jack, the iTunes, like, highest selling kind of male artist for a long time?
He was. And when Steve Jobs was still here and invited Jack to play one of his, brilliant turtlenecked, presentations up there on campus, we had one of our proudest moments because Jack came out and ended up giving Oniracom a shout out. He's like, none of my friends in Hawaii are watching this, I guarantee you. But I do have some friends in Santa Barbara that I know are watching this. And give a shout out to Oniracom. And with Steve Jobs on the stage, I mean, that was just like the highlight of our first decade, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. For anybody on following along, Oniracom is spelled ONIRA, Oniracom, COM.com. And that's the site. And they do this awesome work to this day. I referred you a customer late last year. That is really happy with the work. So anybody wants to go play golf at Hidden Oaks in Santa Barbara, go check out the site. Brooke Fane is the man. What else? There's so much else.
I just want to comment on the red pill, blue pill thing. One thing that we landed on it took us quite a while to eventually, because Oniracom means communicating dreams. So a lot of the first, years, we would always have this, slogan around, solutions for dreamers. And we got into some trouble with pigeonholing ourselves with this notion of dreamers, and we would attract, some certain personality types that way. But eventually we decided to kind of upgrade our branding and refresh our logo and slogan and all of our copywriting. And we landed on that we create a culture of positive disruption. And that's been a through line. That's been a thread for all the ventures that I'm involved in, coming out of the pandemic. Just some context before we get into District 216 is that we had our building kind of empty out. We have this beautiful 5,000 square foot creative office space in Santa Barbara. And the pandemic hits, and now humans are gone. And what do I do with this overhead? And so it slowly evolved into, let's do some live streams, because all these nonprofits aren't able to do in-person galas and they still want to raise money for their organizations. So we could do that live online. So we started doing live streams. Then it was, well, we do photo and video shoots for us. Why don't we open it up for the creative community of Santa Barbara, have them come and use our space for photo and video rentals. And then when COVID restrictions lifted enough, it was events. Let's rent our space out for events, whether we're producing them for, some different Oniracom related, music related things, or anyone can come in and do their type of events. We've hosted comedy shows and music and nonprofit things, private parties, etc. And so to lay that foundation, essentially what happened is we spun that out from the agency and called it Lodo Studios, so that we had its own entity to rent photo and video productions as well as events.
Yeah.
And so having those two entities in place, Oniracom and Lodo Studios, created this foundation to where I felt like, okay, District 216 can now launch and thrive in this ecosystem, this social one that I would do.
Yeah. Lodo Studios, LODO. What does Lodo mean or stand for?
Just lower downtown Santa Barbara.
Yeah. I love the neighborhood where you guys are in. I love your office. I mean, it's always good times for me to drive up and visit with you guys. I grew up in Ventura. I went to school at Santa Barbara, so it's all well-worn, very familiar terrain, and it's always so good to see you, Mike, and the crew. And just all the artifacts, like even in your office behind your where we're talking, just all the work that you guys have done, that body of work, and it's just remarkable. It's like a living museum.
Yeah, I call these walls the good old days.
Yeah,
Certainly a lot of memories here.
And the fact that you're able to reimagine what's next with the new business. So let's get into that. First, so Oniracom is still a full functioning marketing agency. Before we switch to 216, give us some what are you guys offering folks in the context of Oniracom at this moment?
I mean, the transition from music to more diversified industries and verticals happened over the course of a few years, maybe 2012 to 2015. And during that time, we ended up with an incredible contractor who had done a lot of branding work at Nike. And she moved to Santa Barbara to semi-retire, but wanted to still consult and made her way into our agency. So we adopted and sort of, made our own version of Nike's brand platform process. So how they approach building brands. So we learned from, I think, one of the best brands out there from internal processes and workflows that we were able to adopt, and over time became a brand strategy marketing agency. So we were very much focused on not just like, hey, Disney, give me the assets and then we'll build you an experience, but hold on, we want to create the assets. We want to actually create the brand. We want to produce content. We want to write copy. We want to do photo and video and graphics. And so that allowed us to become much more full service. And so this last decade has been definitely technology still in our core of doing web experiences, but we say we do our best work at the intersection of storytelling and technology now. So it's not just the technology piece; it's also the storytelling and creating the brands. And so built out teams around all of that and offer services that are pretty full, encompassing of those things.
Yeah, and the office is really cool. And you guys have the Lodo Studios in-house to be able to do video and all that content creation. So it's sort of a this kind of unified kind of environment that is, it kind of reminds me of one of my mentors, Duke Stump, has this saying that you can't create the magic, but you can create the conditions for the magic. And the environment you guys have created are definitely those conditions. So that's amazing. And I think that's probably a great segue into District 216. So catch us up. What is it? What's the mission? What was the genesis or the light bulb moment?
Sure.
What's at stake if it doesn't succeed?
Man, what's at stake if it doesn't succeed? I mean, I think a lot of disappointed people. I think people are getting a lot of value from this community. Mm-hmm. And it's creating conditions for not just magic, but for healing. People are able to have conversations in a safe place about mental health, about death and dying, about consciousness, about mysticism, all sorts of topics that there's not really a whole lot of places, at least in Santa Barbara, where I can go and be comfortable having those dialogues. I certainly am not getting that in a bar. And that was part of the reason I wanted to start this. I mean, during the pandemic, one of the things one of my best friends told me is like, God, you're so good at producing events and building community. Why aren't you doing more of that? Like, why aren't you focused? Everyone's pivoting and adopting and moving things around, adapting and moving things around from the pandemic. And so I took that in and went, yeah, it would be amazing if I could create a venture where I could do those two things, create community, cultivate community, and produce events that have multimedia elements, artistic elements, educational, thought-provoking elements. And so this idea of edutainment came, which is, entertainment meets education. And these things sort of built their way up to what ended up being District 216, which is, as you said, a psychedelic social club. And it's built around 4 pillars of content. And it's basically the four things that I'm super passionate about: art, music, cannabis, and psychedelics. And so for me to be able to live fully in alignment, come out of the psychedelics closet this way, help normalize that for other people, inspire others to coalesce into this community and have these really incredible conversations. This is a response to like 50 plus years of Nixon's war on drugs and people getting miseducated. You know, we've got a lot of unwinding of that to do. And so all of that culminated to, yes, there was a little light bulb moment. I was out in Denver. I was, you know, with my buddies out there for a weekend of Fish concerts, which is my cult that I'm in. And, you know, he was like, hey, there's this place and it's got live music and people are taking psilocybin mushrooms there and they're open till like 3-4 in the morning. And I'm like, how is this possible? This is prior to Denver passing, to Colorado passing their legal mushroom bill. How are they doing this? Oh, well, they're a social club. It's a membership driven thing. You pay a membership and you're private. That was the light bulb that went off for me to finally kind of coalesce all those things together and go, okay, that's what I need to do. I need to create a social club in Santa Barbara. It needs to be around these 4 pillars of content, and I need to build community here.
Yeah. When you first started telling me about it, I was like, yeah, that's cool. But like, it seemed a little far out. And I was, you know, I am an optimist and I do believe in people, but I was fundamentally a little bit more skeptical. And I am so proud of you and I'm so pleased to see the traction you're getting. Cause, you know, it's like you had the clarity and you were so excited and convicted about it. And you're just like, Johnny Appleseed, just getting everybody to like, you know, join the party. And now it seems like you're really close to maybe getting some local legislation passed in Santa Barbara to get this stuff approved legally.
Yeah. We're working on a decriminalization initiative in Santa Barbara with the city council. We met with several of the city council members. We have other meetings coming up, and we've, you know, had over 500 folks sign our petition. There's a lot of want and desire for access to what this would do is decriminalize specifically entheogenic plants and fungi. So basically plants and fungi that allow humans to have spiritual experiences. So the cactus, San Pedro, and, you know, the toad for 5-MeO-DMT and ayahuasca and ibogaine and, of course, the fungus being the mushroom. These things would become decriminalized, and we would be the 17th city to do so around the country. There's 16 other cities successfully have done this. We were using a template with a group called Decriminalize Nature. They're up in Oakland, California. They're fantastic. And so, you know, being able to leverage the community in this platform, not just for education, but also for advocacy, was a big deal for us to come out early and do this right away and not wait, to show that we're trying to add more value to the community. It's not just about monetizing something. This is really, you know, a passion project where all the dollars are going back in. Nobody's taking salaries. I'm not taking a penny out myself. And already from January till now, it's mid-August, we produced 31 events in about 7 months. So I would call that a big success.
Yeah, and I feel like it's getting a lot of momentum and you're building kind of a head of steam. Couple thoughts. One, you first Fish show I ever went to was with you. You guys brought me out to New York City, the last show before COVID. So it was December 30th of 2019 at Madison Square Garden. It was like the night before their famous New Year's Eve show, and it was amazing experience.
That was one of the best shows. I mean, that's one of my top shows still, honestly.
Yeah.
You caught a fantastic show. Let me just tell you. And we talk bad shit about mediocre or subpar shows. So I'm blowing smoke. That was amazing.
And I got to see him in the Forum last year with you again. That was amazing. And
that was another great show. You got two like epic shows. Seriously, Kurt. You're like a fish totem. We got to bring you out.
All right, let me know the next one. I loved it. And my experience with mushrooms has been, or psychedelics has been kind of a mixed bag, or initially in like college and in high school and stuff like that. But then more recently, and transformatively positive. And in fact, there's a reoccurring theme on my show where I talk about this exercise that my mentor Duke Stump took me through called Imagine the Day. And I did this in '08 when the great financial crisis was happening, and I got completely wiped out. I'd been in the real estate business, and it was amazing until it wasn't. And I was, kind of just completely humbled. And Duke gave me this advice. He's like, Curdy D, like, imagine the day. Like, what would you, if you could do a design exercise about what the next season of your life and career would look like what would be the elements, And I remember I meditated on that, and somebody had given me some mushrooms, and I did them in my backyard. It was a September, a full moon. It was beautiful and warm. And I just sat in the lounge chair, and I just got so clear, and I saw the future. And like within 3 months of that experience, I was like, all right, I want to do something in software. I want it to be the B2B. I don't want to work with retail anymore. I want to be a social enterprise. I want to be going to conferences once a month, flying to new places, getting paid to learn, getting paid to travel, getting paid to meet people. And within 3 months, I met my technical co-founder at CitySourced, Jason. And then within a year, we were on the main stage at TechCrunch, took third place. And then not long after that, we were one of the first B Corps. We had set up as a B Corp, and I got connected to the Esri community, and the rest is history. And fast forward to last year, we finally got the business sold after we started in '09, got it sold in 2023. So that was a 14-year journey, which afforded me the luxury and the space to quit an awesome job and to take some time and to start something new. And kind of celebrate this road less traveled, this left-handed path, the red pill, the go against the grain. Yep. And I really, if I go all the way back to my journey and what really helped unlock that, it was that mushroom trip in the backyard in September of '08 under a full moon with that context.
The medicine knows what you need. It's all within us. It helps unlock what we need. And when you go into something like that, as you did with setting an intention, setting, right? You had the right mindset. You had the right environment. You set an intention. You knew what you were after. You created the conditions for a psychedelic
magic.
That you created conditions for the magic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had subsequent experiences with it that really helped me, because I got my hearing in '07, and I had so much like deep stuff around that, just like, social anxiety. I had identity stuff going on. I just, that I just wasn't, didn't love myself, and being able to like have that experience where I got, the surgery with the cochlear and got the hearing in '07, and these things that happened had just really helped me to, connect with myself in many ways for the first time. And it really had more of an integration of the physical and the emotional and the external, kind of, the inner world of me, the external world of the world, and to be able to have more of a dance or more fluid interface between the two, and not quite so more gradient, less vector, if that makes any sense.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah. A hell of a lot of clear sense to me.
Yeah. So
I think that's important for people to hear, and this is exactly what we do at District 216, is normalize these conversations and create the space for people to feel comfortable coming. We have different formats of events, and one of the ones that we've been loving monthly recently are these conscious connection roundtable conversations. Mm-hmm. People can come and share stuff like this.
Yeah.
And do integration to what their experiences are, and figure out what the meaning might be, or how that reflects amongst other people.
So, Jacob, if people want to get involved or learn more, what's a good place for them to do that? How can they sign up?
Yeah, so district216.com. By the time most people hear this, we'll probably have all of our new membership tiers rolled out. We're about to launch our online membership so that you don't just have to be here near the Santa Barbara Central Coast area to enjoy District 216 in person. We film all the content, all the interviews and discussion panels, and those go up in a software platform that we've been building on, and we're rolling out an online only membership for people around the world that want to be part of the psychedelic community, have conversations with our members one-to-one or within the context of a group chat, and enjoy the content, get all of this video content and other resources that we've been populating there. So very excited to roll that out. And then, of course, if you are in person or happen to be visiting Santa Barbara, we love having guests. We love having guests come to even just one of our weekly Wednesday night meetings, which are smaller gatherings of 20 to 30. Those range from film screenings to interviews and workshops, experiential things, all the way over to those roundtable conversations I mentioned. And then once a quarter, we do the big parties.
All right. So the smaller weekly on Wednesdays and then the quarterly big blowouts. District 216. 216 is spelled out 216, the numbers.com.
Yeah. District216.com. And if nothing else, sign up on our newsletter, and that way you can see what we got going on. We send out weekly newsletters.
Yeah, I've been watching a bunch of Ken Burns documentaries lately. I don't know why. It's a season. When it rains, it pours. And I dug into the Ben Franklin one, which was amazing. And Ben met once a week in Philadelphia on Fridays with a small peer group, and they called it Junto, Junto. And out of that group, it was the first libraries and hospitals and fire stations. And they just basically wanted to, they're on this frontier, they're a colony, and they weren't getting a lot of help from England. And, they just kind of, imagined what life in the New World could be. And it's remarkable. I think, back to, one of my best mentors, Jack Dangerman at Esri, one of the things that he talks a lot about is living above the line. And above the line, he describes as context, and below the line is content. And he maps it to like the amygdala is sort of below the line. That's sort of our animal kind of fight or flight response. And that's sort of survival instinct. And that's just sort of that's the stimulus response function. And above the line is sort of our frontal cortex, where we're imagining and creating. And I think that's a lot of what psychedelics does. It helps us get above the line. And I think I've heard it said that what it does is that this analogy of like, if you go to the ski hill and, there's a fresh snow and, like at the end of the day, everybody skied down it, and there's these sort of like rigid paths, and, those are the moguls, and a lot of us just keep getting trapped in that, in those pathways, and that the psychedelics is a fresh snow that allows new kind of thought patterns to emerge. And I think that really relates back to this above the line and this context. It gives you so much context about the content.
Yeah. And that's, you just described neuroplasticity, the process of, the way that our brains are actually able to take in more information and learn and make new synaptic connections. When we're neuroplastic, when we're in the state of neuroplasticity, psychedelic experiences can absolutely help us get into that state. And also they can shut off our default mode network. So we're not just going through day to day, trying to ignore all the noise and find the signal. We're really just like children again. We're really curious and exploring.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Default mode network. I wonder if default mode network would map to below the line.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great analogy. I love that, above and below the line. And I think I definitely try to live as much above the line as possible.
All right, Jack, if you're listening to this, well, Jack Johnson, that is, maybe there's some insight around a song above the line.
Yeah, there you go. And you can interview Jack Dangerman for that context.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Maybe I get both of them on the show. Call the episode A Pair of Jacks.
I love that.
That'd be fun.
Jack's wild.
Yeah, Jacks are wild. Yeah, Jack Dangerman did a major land grant. He bought the old Bixby Ranch in North Santa Barbara County, 25,000 square acres. They 168 million, I think, something about that they donated, and it's now the Dangerman Preserve. UC Santa Barbara, which is the best geography school in the world, best mapping school that Jack Dangerman endows, is instrumenting this area up there. It's Point Conception with all this remote sensing and trying to make it a living lab. And it's always been a fantasy of mine that maybe you get the Johnsons to come hang out with the Dangermans and kind of celebrate that. Maybe that could be a fun little possibility we create here on the show. We'll see if that happens. Speaking of above the line, but anywho, one of the things that my audience loves about the show is we keep it real, and I try to just lead by example and be really honest about things that I've had challenges with, and you've sort of seen that whole journey with me. So this is really extra special. But in that context of humanizing success, Jacob, is there a challenge personally or professionally that you're comfortable sharing publicly? And what was that challenge? How'd you get over the hurdle, and what gift did the pain give you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the most obvious thing that immediately comes to my mind is 18 months ago, almost to the day, my father passed away from a rare blood cancer, and he and I were extremely close. Through writing, he was a poet and an author and a writer, and so I kind of naturally found myself going to that after he passed. And one of the things that I found kind of channeled through is I made a realization that he was what I called my source of yes and, sort of that concept that is used in improvisation, in music and comedy and whatnot. But like to be able to when I share a new venture, a new concept, new idea, he would just be so excited and so supportive, but yet was able to also check it with some kind of logical feedback in a very constructive way. So it was a very yes and relationship. And so I realized, like, not only were there normal voids that, a son losing a father or a family losing the patriarchal figure or whatnot naturally occurs, but I had this additional layer of like, where do I get that source of just almost like permission and inspiration to do all of these ventures? So for District 216 to come out the way it did in the time that it did, it was very symbolic of me kind of coming to the realization through the grieving process that I need to go within. All this stuff has to come from within. This isn't externally validated. These aren't things that you get even from a supportive partner, spouse, loved one, parent, and that you have to be fully lit up and aligned in whatever you do. And you have to be able to draw that inspiration from within, at least for me, to feel like I'm full steam ahead. And for District 216, that's what's manifested. That's how I've overcome. Not that I've overcome grieving is going to be a lifelong process, but that's how I've overcome sort of the lens in which I've looked at this venture and not having to go anywhere for validation to say to even Kurt, I don't care what you think if it's a good or bad idea. I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. I'm glad you are seeing the value in it now, and I'm glad you challenged it in the beginning. But I also was like, I know what I'm doing. I know what I need to do, and this is what has to happen, regardless.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So Darrel's with you, and it's I get that. I can sense that, and I think even you're explicit with that sometimes in the content you post. Yeah.
Darrel Tell. I actually wrote this manifesto for District 216 of all of our values, and it's one of the main menu items on the website, and it's dedicated to him at the bottom. And it just really was one of those things that channeled through so easily because I think it really embodied what he instilled in me as well. So what's now instilled in the community.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. That was very heartfelt, and I can't imagine losing a parent. I haven't, thank God, had to lose one yet. And my parents are like my best friends, and I can't even imagine. I know how close you guys were, and sad I never got to meet them, but I felt like
you were at weddings together, whether you met or not.
Yeah. But I just, from the content you posted and the conversations we've had, and I know we chatted a bunch when you're going through that process, that, I felt like I got a little connection to him.
I mean, he knew about you and how much you meant to me, and as an advisor and a mentor over the years, and a friend,
Yeah.
and as a friend with Kim and Jack as well. Like, my parents both were very aware of you.
Yeah.
My dad was very aware of you.
Yeah.
Those years.
Speaking of kind of wrapping it up, kind of rapid fire questions. Your cousin Kim Baker, now Kim Johnson, Jack's wife, she's one of the most amazing humans I've ever met. She's, just beautiful inside and out, just so smart, so she's the muse of all these amazing love songs that Jack wrote. What about her is so special to you?
I mean, she's more of a sister than a cousin for me. Our brains work very similarly. Like, you can throw us into an Excel spreadsheet and we're going to both kind of like bring it out into this beautiful thing, beautiful object at the end. Mm-hmm. But we, it's funny, like, she taught high school here in Santa Barbara prior to the music adventure. And she, taught math, but she studied art and math. So she's got the left-right brain thing going on as well. And she has just been, the powerhouse behind all the different nonprofit initiatives that Kim and Jack have done together. They've formed multiple foundations. They've done that Green Writer and other music industry programs like BYO Bottle. Just an incredible amount of gifts that she's given, and teams that she's led and inspired to do very challenging, oftentimes thankless and low-paid work, because a lot of the environmental world is not really super aligned with the for-profit world. So she's a big inspiration, to me personally and professionally, and I model quite a bit of what we've done over the years around what I've learned from just being able to work with her.
Yeah, having friends like them has, for me, been a real bar raiser, and I've written to them from time to time and just thanked them for the inspiration they've given me. I think that's kind of with that, a bit of that cliche that rising tide rises all boats. But, these things happen in schools, in kind of clusters, like even reminiscing on their wedding video, and just like that, there's a whole crew, and that this happens in art. This happened, in these things kind of move in schools and cohorts. And, I feel very, grateful and lucky to be kind of at the edge of that network and that group. So, kind of final question, fun one for me to ask. If you could have any band play any venue in the world, past, present, or future, it could be an artist, a band, a rapper, who would it be and where?
I mean, my obvious choice has already occurred, so I won't say Fish at the Santa Barbara Bowl, because we just got to experience that a couple of times in the last 10 years. I'll put the Beatles there instead. Why not? Let's have the Beatles play the Santa Barbara Bowl. That'd be incredible.
I love that. On your birthday.
Yeah, on August 4th. Let's have a summertime Beatles outdoor show. It'd be perfect.
So how can our audience be helpful to you, Jacob? I know you mentioned signing up for District 216. Maybe also any referrals to the marketing agency at Oniracom.
Yeah. Both of those things. And then if there's anybody out there that's looking to get involved on the capital side of the psychedelic space, we'd love to hear from you. I'd like to scale District 216 out of Santa Barbara to other geographies and open this up more globally. So that's the vision, and it's going to take some capital to pull that off.
If people want to get a hold of you, what's a good channel?
I'm Jacob Tell on Instagram and Twitter, or just email me, Jacob at district216.com or Jacob at oniracom.com.
Yeah, and that's Tell, Tell. Jacob, you've become like family. I love you like a brother. I'm so grateful that we get to, reminisce about all that's happened so far, and I feel like we're just getting started.
Amen. I feel the same way. Thank you so much for having me, Kurt. I'm proud of this podcast venture too. I think you're adding a lot of value to a lot of folks. So keep it up.
Oh yeah. I can't wait to see you. And I can't wait to see a District 216 event real soon. So thanks for continuing to invite me. And I can't wait to see you. You're lovely.
Mark your calendars, September 23rd.
Let's go. Thanks again to Jacob Tell for being our guest. I cannot wait to check out District 216. And if this is your sort of thing and you want to join us, please do let us know. I'm at Curdy D on Twitter and Instagram, also Kurt Deredix on LinkedIn. Please do give us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/Curdy D. It's the best compliment you can give us. Spread the word, spread the love. And until next time, Curdy D loves you.